I'm Stephanie Boyce. I'm a professor and the director of the writing program at Paul Quinn College in Dallas, Texas. I also teach African American Studies at the University of Houston. And I have my own business called The Fresh Classroom, where I teach teachers. A lot of what we do in schools is around diversity, equity, and inclusion kind of training. So I'm teaching teachers how to become more culturally responsive to the students they teach. It's important for teachers to be able to welcome the fullness of diversity with their students. And hair is such a big part of that, especially for the Black experience.
Tell me about your hair experiences. Tell me how we got to this point of these beautiful locks with the little blonde tips and all that. Tell me your hair experience.
My hair journey has been a reflection of my growth as a person, right? So I can remember being a little girl in front of my big mama's gas stove with that hot comb brewing, and we would have to, sit in the chair and get our hair pressed, and it would be so hot. It was like torture for me. Like, I hated getting my hair straightened, but it was just a part of what we did, and we were told that beauty is pain, and this was just a part of the process. And so we subjected ourselves to the hot comb, and I hated it. As I got older, I always had a desire to want to just be me.
Talk about the historical context that comes along with the hair journey.
We understand as African Americans fought for our rights to exist in America, to be seen and be heard as people, as humans, and to have the human rights that are supposed to come along with our Constitution. Part of that being accepted was to prove that we were worthy, right? And so a part of that proving that we were worthy, proving that we were just like everyone else, meant assimilation. Because in order to pioneer in a field, there are sometimes some sacrifices and compromises that have to be made in order to get in, to be seen, to be heard, and to be viewed as acceptable or worthy. I don't take it lightly that I can show up in the fullness of my Black self with my hair locked, and I don't have to consider a European standard of beauty and impose it on myself. But it's only because of the historical context and the women that have come before me that did have to sometimes compromise a little bit more and assimilate a little bit more.
When did you first have you ever experienced any type of microaggression as it relates to hair or hair discrimination?
I think ironically, from within my family, first and foremost, before you present yourself to the world, you present yourself to your family, and you are immediately criticized, challenged. And it's ironic that for me, those first macroaggressions came from my family. Like, where you going with your hair like that? Like, my grandma asked me one time, did you mean for your hair to look nappy like that, baby? When I had a little afro one time.
Why do you think your elders have some of those perspectives as it relates to afros or kinkier hair? Why do you think that's the case?
The times that they grew up in were such challenging times. And we talk about segregation and Jim Crow like they're things of the past that happened a long time ago. But the reality is my father was the first African American to graduate from an all-white school in Texas. And so to get admissions into that school, to be able to go and interact and show up in that white space, you got to imagine that that's his perspective. So when he says my daughter has a nappy hair, that's his perception about himself. And I tell him, Daddy, don't let your self-hate reflect on me. I'm loving my nappy hair. I have to be mindful and gracious towards my elders, because in order to survive, they had to more fully assimilate themselves. And so when they're looking at us, it's just kind of all the way outside of the realm of understanding for some of them to say, why would you want to walk around with your hair like that? But it's like, for me, I remember telling my grandma, I know you might not like it, but I just like being me. Well, why would you wear your hair nappy like that? Well, ironically, Grandma, this is just the way God made it. I don't even know. And so I understand them wanting to help us get ahead, because they have an idea of what it takes to sit at the table and eat and not be discriminated against. Why would you want to look different? Why would you want to embrace something that makes us so different than everyone else? Try to just get along and play along and be safe and get some money and have some security. I understand that's their perspective and they mean well, but I also understand the importance of progress. It's not my responsibility to do what they had to do. My responsibility is to move the needle forward, to have some uncomfortable conversations like the one that we're having right now. And the fact that people have to even pay attention to this is remarkable. My grandma would be so confused if she was still here. Like, you talked about your natural hair, but it's important.
What would you tell your younger self? What would you tell young girls about embracing all of you, head to toe?
Be fearless in your pursuit of authenticity. If you think a certain profession may not accept you, just be you anyway, and give people an opportunity to see the fullness of who you are, because it's an asset. You showing up in the fullness of who you are is going to be a benefit to them. There's some outside influences that make us challenge that sometimes. We say, maybe I could be prettier, maybe I should be curvier, maybe I should be straighter with my hair, whatever it is. We always feel like there's something else, another measure of beauty. Have courage enough to just do you.
How deep is hair for you?
Ooh. Hair is deep. Hair is freedom for me. It's permission to step into the world in the fullness of who I am, just completely unassimilated and authentic. And that's freedom.